Okay, so it looks as though we've got Jacky joining us. Jacky, are you there?
Hey, can you hear me?
We can hear you. How are
good.
you?
I'm good. How are you?
Excellent. It's great to have Jacky Broersma joining
Here we
us. Did I manage to get your name right?
Yeah, you did. You did perfectly. It's absolutely fine.
I kept looking at the spelling of it and I was thinking, how do I say this? So you're joining us, which is fantastic. You a para ultra runner. You've done incredible things both off treadmills and on treadmills.
Thank you.
What's it like seeing Zach maybe creating a little bit of history here?
Oh man, it's absolutely amazing to watch him. He's just an incredible runner. He's accomplished so much, and I just loved watching his journey.
Yeah, it's been incredible. Now, Tommy only joined us probably about 10 or 15 minutes ago, and we were talking about what it's like to be on a treadmill with the daunting task of 12 hours. And Zach's pace seemed to be a little bit slower than I anticipated early on, but now he's speeded up and he's gone from 7:54s to 6:63s. And Don brought in a question in the initial chat about Zach's heart rate. And Tommy, maybe you can come in as well here, is that how important is Zach's heart rate? And does it have any real relevance to what Zach is doing? For me, it almost feels a consequence of his pace. And the only factor that I was considering was maybe that because he is in his home and he's in a confined space, maybe the heat buildup will affect his heart rate. And is that something that he should be worried about?
Well, I do think because of the environment, I mean, I normally have that. My heart rate goes up a little bit higher when I'm running on the treadmill. It's just, there isn't wind, the environment is just very different. I don't know what you think, Tommy.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. I think that, the advantage here is that he's able to completely control that environment, I guess, to a certain extent. It depends on how, it depends on how powerful those air conditioners are. But, having the ability to control that, having the ability to control the direction that the wind is blowing, it looks like he has a fan behind him, which in my perspective is brilliant, because even though you are running on a treadmill, if you have a fan blowing in your face, you're actually having to fight against wind resistance.
True.
And so having that, having that directed behind him, definitely that will help. And then, being able to control all of the other factors, having nutrition there, having fluids there. And then in terms of heart rate, I would assume, based off of how meticulous Zach is about these types of things, I would assume he's watching that very closely. A lot of times people wrongly assume that that there is this linear progression where, the faster you run, the more uncomfortable it becomes in proportion to your heart rate. The faster your respiratory rate increases, and people assume that this is a linear progression, and a lot of times though what happens is there are actually certain physiological thresholds that once you exceed that threshold, systems actually begin to just shut down. And so it's not like you fade out and taper away. Systems will actually shut down, and the way that your body fuels, the type of metabolic system that you're using, that will shift based off of your heart rate. And he's obviously an expert at this. He knows exactly what he's doing, and so he knows to be prudent and stay under those thresholds, just because otherwise this whole thing, the wheels come off, and it fades away pretty quick. So
I mean, Zach is obviously, he's got a very unique approach which he's dialed in. He's on a high fat, low carb diet. So his fat utilization, his body, his system works in a very, very unique way, which he has learned and tweaked and progressed. And he was saying before this that he would be looking to take around about 40 grams of carbohydrate per hour, because he knows that his stomach can handle that and he doesn't want stomach distress. how much does that affect his heart rate in terms of the way that his diet is?
I think that there are obviously a lot of different approaches here, and my takeaway from this, just holistically in terms of nutrition, is everybody's looking for a right way and a wrong way, and these nutritional approaches, people start to become very entrenched in them, almost as though it's an identity or counter identity type thing. Yeah. But what I've I guess taken away from seeing lots of different perspectives and trying lots of different nutrition approaches is that there isn't one right way or one wrong way. My takeaway is that the human body is incredibly adaptive, and we have the ability within our gut bacteria, our microbiome, to adapt to almost endless possibilities. And as long as all of the essential macro and micronutrients are present, our body has an incredible way, over time. Obviously we have to give it time to adapt and make those changes, but we have the ability to utilize essentially innumerable nutritional approaches and still have a successful outcome from that. And so, Zach has found that based off of his specific, gastrointestinal circumstances, that he does better consuming less carbs. And, he's worked and he's put in the time to train his body to utilize more fat. But you see it with other athletes where, they're high carb and low fat, and they're also very successful. And so, there are full-on carnivores. Mike McKnight, just a week ago ran 100 miles with 0 calories. And then, I live in Flagstaff, and the runners here basically live off of pizza and beer, and they're and
that sounds like a good diet.
Right. And they're also pretty successful, and so obviously, as long as your body is getting everything that it needs, every cell in your body needs water and oxygen and some type of sugar, and whether that sugar is glucose straight from your blood into your cells, or whether it's fat being broke down and turned into glucose, at the end of the day, it turns into sugar, and our body has the incredible ability to utilize that and, give us what we need. But
Awesome. Jacky, let's talk about treadmills and your approach. For the listeners and for the viewers who don't know, you in 2001 was diagnosed with cancer, and you decided to have your leg amputated, which proved to be a good decision because the cancer didn't spread.
That's correct.
And in 2016, you took up running, starting with 5Ks, and then you did marathons, and now you're doing ultras. I'm always amazed when, I think about running, and then people say, oh, I can't. And then somebody like you comes along and just proves, yes, you can. So talk about the mental side of running, and maybe some of the mental side that Zach is going through here, because you've experienced this from two sides, as a runner, but also through the fact that you've had to endure a whole process to get to where you are now.
That's correct. And I think the process that I've had to go through has made me mentally stronger. So it definitely has helped. And for me, running, and I know Tommy was saying it's a lot to do with your body too. For me, it's a little bit also mental. I just feel like, because I'm always pushing my body really hard, and I think Zach for him, it might also be a bit of a mental thing, especially because you're on the treadmill, so it's a bit different. And for me, it's always been like, when I started 5Ks, it's kind of, you start doing it and you think, oh, I've done, and it's taking that first step to kind of try it, because you keep saying, oh yeah, I can't do it. Then you try it and you think, oh, I managed to do that. And then you kind of start adding in a little bit more distance, and you think, oh, I can do it. And you have, for me, a lot of it was people were telling me, well, you can't run an ultramarathon as an amputee. And I was like, well, why not? So of course that made me more determined to kind of do it and keep at it. And the first time I did it, I was like, oh my goodness, I did it. This is amazing. And it's just kind of breaking that mental barrier of, because I think a lot of the times we're our own enemy, because we tell ourselves we can't. and we believe ourselves we can't. And as soon as you try something and you're able to do it, you think, oh wow, I can actually do this. And it's just kind of pushing through and kind of getting through there. I mean, phenomenal what Zach is doing today. It's just yeah, it's amazing to watch. It will be. I mean, for me, when I did the treadmill 100-miler, it was quite a mental, just because you're not on the trails, it's different. You're just in your own room, so you don't have a distraction and things. So there's a lot of, you're left a lot with your own thoughts and things, and if you know what I mean.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think Christine is going to come in now with a little bit of news or sponsorship news. Christina, are you there?
I'm just going to keep busting in on your guys' conversation. But you guys are doing really awesome, and it's fascinating to be able to sit and listen to you guys all talk and just gain the knowledge from all of you guys and just the different perspectives. So thanks so much for being on today and sharing all this information with all of us out here.
Thank you, Christina.
Yeah.
Jacky, let me ask you about running on a treadmill with a prosthetic.
Yes.
How difficult is it?
It's rather difficult. The issue I have is it's your blade. Your blade is designed to kind of push you forward, so it means you're pushing forward on the treadmill. So you end up hitting the front of the treadmill, and then it's kind of getting.
Okay, so Zach has just gone through 10 miles.
Fantastic. Go Zach.
That's in 1 hour, 10 minutes and 42 seconds or so. So he's definitely started to push the pace up a little bit from when he started. He started nice and steady, which, and I think the thing is it's still very, very early days. You've got to keep your powder dry, but you've also don't want to go slower than you need to, because then you've got to catch up. When you were on the treadmill, Jacky, how did you sort of decide your pacing strategy?
My strategy is I always start a lot slower. It's just my body needs a lot of time to kind of warm up and kind of get into a bit of a rhythm. And it's a lot running on the prosthetic. I kind of have to get my balance a little bit on the treadmill. So it takes me a bit of time to kind of get into it. So I'm quite lenient with my pace in the beginning, and then kind of start ramping it up. Because I started ramping, I kind of had a really easy pace until about mile 50, and then I kind of just started ramping it up to kind of get going and get a little bit faster, because I had a time goal in mind too, like Zach. Nothing quite as fast as Zach, but that's kind of how my process was.
Yeah. Can I bring you in here, Tommy?
Yeah, of course.
1 hour, 10 minutes for 10 miles. So that's nice and easy. Even I can do this math. That's 7-minute miles. That is 30 seconds per mile quicker than he would need if he continued that pace for 100 miles. So just from a coaching perspective, obviously Zach is the one running those miles, and it's in his head, the strategy, but with 10 miles covered, it's a significant landmark, isn't it? Because it's a nice 10th of the distance done. What will be going through his head?
Right, exactly. So, man, I guess it depends on how he's broken it down for himself mentally. But yeah, being able to see that and say, I'm potentially a 10th of the way done, or I guess based off of time, if he's going to go for 12 hours, maybe, a 12th of the way done. But, just being able to tick that off, he's obviously picked up the pace quite a bit. And, based off my calculations, he's a little bit faster than he even needs to be. And maybe he's trying to build himself a little bit of a buffer, or maybe I'm assuming he's got, the metrics there where he's able to see what his heart rate is, and, knowing himself better than anybody else. He may know that he's well within his ability right now at that stage. And, he's just going to roll with it. And, sometimes we're out there trying to actually, set a new standard in terms of human potential. It sometimes can feel a bit, imprudent to not follow the plan, but you know, unless you're willing to risk, you know, overdoing it, you may not actually be able to find what that potential is. And so, you know, Zach clearly knows what he's doing, and man, I would trust him if I was his coach, and you know, I would never presume, but if I was his coach, I would say, you know what, he knows what he's doing. Let's just let him roll with it. And
and Jacky, from your perspective, I think all of us could only dream of doing 10 miles in 70 minutes on a treadmill, with the prospect of 90 miles still to go. It's difficult sometimes to comprehend what Zach is doing. And I said to Don early on, the way that I explain it to people who don't necessarily understand running and what the time and the distance mean is, you just basically say he's running 4 marathons, all well under 3 hours per marathon. And then people go, oh yes, now I know what you
now
mean.
You know,
And then suddenly the penny drops, because for most people, even just a 3-hour marathon would be a holy grail. So we've got some news coming in.
All right, we've got that QR code back up again for Fight for the Forgotten. Again, you can take a picture of that with your phone, and it's going to take you directly to their link to donate for that. We do have Don coming back on, I believe, from 1 to 3 today, so he will go over that organization, all that information today at 1 to 3. And congrats to our next winners. We have the Buff headband. Buff is one of the sponsors for today, and we have those just going to your social media, and you'll be able to figure out how to get those sent to you. And then the next package is going to be another of the SFuels product packs. So reach out to us on social media and we will get that going. Nordic Track, go to their Instagram page and you can find out how to enter to win one of the Nordic Track machines that they will be giving away today. And then I know earlier we talked about asking questions for Zach, and they did say if we reach out at sfuels.sf on Instagram, you guys can get those questions to Zach and we will get those over to him, and that way he can respond to some of those questions too. So we do have that out there for you guys today. And then our athlete spotlight right now is Beth Harold. She, I believe, just finished up a 40K ride and is doing a 10K run today with Zach. So we are cheering her on from here and looking forward to hearing all about her event later on today.
Way to go, Beth. Keep it going.
Thank you.
Hey, Beth.
I've actually kind of changed what I'm doing. In that I decided to do the run across Tennessee, the virtual run.
Okay.
So I'm on my 3rd leg of the 5 miles every 4 hours, the Yeti challenge.
Oh,
okay.
Nice.
So this is my 3rd leg. I woke up this morning at 3 and did a leg, did another one at 7, and now this one at 11.
wow.
Oh, that's far too dedicated.
I'm not an ultra runner. I'm a triathlete. And so Christina has given me a lot of motivation.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, you keep going.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks, you guys, for letting me cut in again.
Thank you, Christina.
I will continue quiet now in my quarter.
Okay, Jacky. So you're going to have to remind me where I was when I was.
You were talking about how to explain to people about the distance and
That's
the time,
right. Yeah.
And that's always an issue, because, well, I say an issue because it's like people just can't imagine what 100 miles is like, and they're like, and most people go, why would you do that? Because when I did mine, I got so many people that commented and said, why on earth would you think of doing that? And I'm like, well, if you're an ultra, it's hard to explain, because once you become an ultra runner, it's all about pushing your body. You kind of want to just push further and see how far you can push your body. And I'm like, why not? You got to give it a try.
Yeah, absolutely. Let me bring Tommy in here, because I saw you smile when I said 4 well under sub 3 hour marathons back to back. It's pretty intimidating, isn't it?
Oh yeah, that's incredibly daunting. You know, people talk about the marathon and you know, the metaphorical wall that you go through, maybe, you know, 2 hours into it, or 16 to 20 miles, wherever that is, where your body, well, it's not like a switch where you shift from one system to another, but you definitely go from having plenty of fuel to all of a sudden it's a little bit less efficient. And and man, and then you think about, if that were to happen, 18 miles in, 16 miles in, you're just barely getting started. And that's something that I realized when I was training for some longer races, and actually I was able to run 100 miles one time, finish it at one time, I should say. I attempted it another time, didn't quite make it to the finish line, but what I did realize, the takeaway for me was that you think that as I mentioned before, that the pain, the discomfort, the effort is going to be this linear progression. And if there's a certain level of discomfort at, say, mile 10 or say mile 15, and if you project forward and think, well, if it hurts this bad at mile 15, it's going to hurt double at mile 30. And sometimes that can freak people out. It can sometimes cause people, once that doubt sneaks in and that fear sneaks in, it can actually cause this cascade of chemicals that releases into your body, where it actually does limit you. It actually does change physiologically what's going on in your body, and it does make it more difficult. And what I have
Tommy,
found,
can I just interrupt you? I'm really
Sure,
sorry,
of course.
because
Sure, of
Zach has
course.
come off the treadmill. So,
All right.
So it's just an important point.
Right, of course.
I'm guessing that he's probably gone for a bathroom break, because he's actually left the room. At 20 minutes into today, he actually stopped and came off one treadmill and went onto the other treadmill, and we were speculating why that might be. We still don't know the answer, but now he's actually left the room. So the clock is ticking with no miles going on. Now, of course, it's to be expected that you've got to have natural breaks for when you're running 100 miles, but psychologically that's interesting, isn't it? Because if it takes a minute, it takes 75 seconds to go to the bathroom. That extra pace that you increased for 4 miles, 5 miles is now suddenly eroding, and he's back onto the treadmill now. And of course, he's going to want to get back his speed back up as quickly as possible. What's it like, Tommy, to be banging out 7-minute miles, have to go to the bathroom and then get back on and then get back up to speed?
Well, obviously the clock doesn't stop, and so perhaps that's why he's built in that buffer that he did, because he knows that if it takes him 90 seconds to use the restroom, that's nearly 1 second per mile that he's going to have to make up. Exactly. If he only took a single bathroom break, and I'm assuming this is going to be something that happens repeatedly throughout 12 hours, and something that happens, and maybe not to get a little bit too I guess just frankly say it, what happens when you start to get dehydrated is that your bladder, obviously, it fills up with the metabolic waste that your body needs to get rid of, and as you become more and more dehydrated, that pee becomes more and more concentrated with metabolic waste, and it can actually, it starts to irritate the inside of your bladder, and everything else where that's utilized in excretion, and so it can become incredibly uncomfortable, because everything that's sitting down there in your bladder is actually irritating the inside, and so you may find that his bathroom breaks become more common, not because there's more volume, but because the chemical composition of that fluid becomes more irritable to the inside of that system. And so that's something that I've noticed in these long efforts. You may think that you have to pee like a racehorse, and you go to do it, and all you get is a really concentrated, uncomfortable dribble, and then you got to get back to it. So
Tommy nails the toilet break with his description there. That's the truth. It is very, very true, and even I learned a little bit more than I knew before. So that's great, because now every time I see Zach going for a pee, I'll know exactly what's going on. Jacky, when you were on the treadmill, did you plan things like toilet breaks, or did you just let nature take its?
I mean, I had it in my back of the head. So you have to plan it in your overall time, but you just kind of you just go with it because you don't know what your body's going to do. And you kind of have to be a bit flexible, but it is like Tommy said, it's the clock doesn't stop. So that kind of works into your time. So it adds onto an element. You can't be like taking 5 minutes for a toilet break. You kind of have to, you were on a clock, so you kind of have to be quick and back on it again. Yeah.
Tommy, can I ask you, Zach was
Sure.
doing 120-mile training weeks in the build up to this event, with predominantly aerobic threshold training, but he did some lactate threshold work as well. He's got this to a fine art. He knows exactly what he needs to do. But from a coaching perspective, if the viewers are wondering, you know, how do I make the most of my body to achieve something like 100 miles, irrespective of trying to set a world record? How do you think about the training, and how do you break it down?
Well, you know, the easy answer is that there's no one solution. Every single body is different. Everybody's lifestyle is different. There are lots of different stressors, whether that's work, whether that's, you know, family life, whether that's your training, and depending on the way that somebody is built biomechanically, everybody is different. And so some athletes are able to get by on less volume and higher intensity, and other athletes do better with you know, higher volume and lower intensity. And that's something that, you know, sometimes takes decades to figure out. And so Zach, you know, he's probably found, you know, that 120 miles is likely not an arbitrary number. That's likely something that he's kind of focused in on and centered in on over years and years of doing this, realizing that, you know, maybe 140 miles or 150 miles is too much. And he's not able to recover from, you know, day to day within a 24-hour period. And, you know, you start to get diminishing returns rather than actually positive adaptations. And so I'm assuming that this is something that, you know, he is focused in on very specifically. And he's realized that he can be consistent at that volume week after week, month after month, you know, year after year. And that really is what makes a difference, is consistency, you know, being able to avoid injuries and you know, being able to stack together months and months and months of consistent training. So I'm assuming it's a fine art for him, and he's just dialed in on that.
Yeah. Jacky, it's noticeable when Zach got back on the treadmill after his bathroom break, was he seems to be, or appears to be, moving slightly quicker. And I wonder, do you think it was possibly a strategy that if he was running at 7-minute miles, he's now dropped the treadmill to 6:52s or 6:55s, just to maybe psychologically for 3 miles maybe get some of the time back that he used when he went to the bathroom?
It is absolutely possible, but I mean, we don't know what Zach's strategy is, so it just that could be part of the strategy, that he just wants to push up and just nail those 3 miles, and so he can bring his time down. It is hard to tell what because we don't know what his strategy is going to be, what he's planning to do, or how he's doing it, or how he's feeling. He might just be feeling really good and just going for it, and just kind of going with the rhythm.
Yeah, I think the one thing is that Zach will have certainly put some template down in his own mind, but
Absolutely.
As you know, and as Tommy, you will know, is that what is written on paper doesn't necessarily translate to what happens on the treadmill on race day. So it will be something that will be changing and evolving, and of course we can expect him to go through some good points, and then we can expect him to go through some bad points